Plagiarism? You've got to be kidding me, Darius shot back, his voice trembling with disbelief as he stared across the table at Lila Pearson. Her cold eyes locked onto his, her lips curling into a smirk that made his stomach churn. Don't act innocent, Darius, Lila said sharply, sliding a folder toward him. This email chain proves you sent confidential client designs to an unknown third party. Darius flipped through the pages, his heart pounding harder with every line. The emails looked convincing, too convincing, but something felt off. He'd never written them. Before he could respond, Greg Monroe chimed in, his tone clipped and dismissive. The evidence speaks for itself, Greg said, leaning back in his chair like he'd already moved on from the conversation. We can't afford to take risks. With someone who compromises trust. Darius clenched his fists under the table, trying to stay composed. These are fake. Someone's framing me. Lila leaned forward, her smile now razor-thin. Framing you? That's quite the accusation. Do you have proof? The room fell silent except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights above. Darius knew this wasn't about facts. It was about power, and right now they held all the cards. As Lila stood up, signaling the end of the meeting, she delivered the final blow. Effective immediately, consider yourself terminated. Darius left, the room reeling, anger bubbling beneath the surface. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this ordeal was far from over. Walking down the hallway, Darius replayed the accusations in his mind. How could anyone believe those forged emails were real? He stopped abruptly outside Greg's office, turning back to confront him. "Greg, listen to me," Darius pleaded, gripping the doorframe tightly. "I didn't do this. Someone planted those emails. Look closer. You'll see inconsistencies." Greg barely glanced up from his laptop. "Look, Darius, I get it. This is tough. But we've been over this. The client flagged the design similarities themselves. We don't have time to dig deeper when the stakes are this high." "But what about the motive?" Darius pressed, desperation creeping into his voice. "Why would I sabotage my own career?" Greg shrugged, avoiding eye contact. "People make mistakes. Maybe you thought no one would notice. Either way, it doesn't matter now." The casual dismissal hit harder than any insult. Darius realized this wasn't just about work, it was personal. Every word out of Greg's mouth carried undertones of bias, painting him as guilty before proven innocent. He stormed away, frustration burning in his chest. If Visionary wouldn't listen, maybe someone else would. But who? As Darius packed his belongings into a cardboard box, whispers echoed behind him. A white co-worker named Ryan muttered loud enough for him to hear. "Always talking big, acting, like he owns the place. Guess karma caught up." Darius froze mid-fold, heat rising to his face. He turned slowly, meeting Ryan's smug expression. "What did you say?" Ryan shrugged, feigning innocence. "Just saying, not everyone appreciates arrogance. Arrogance for excelling at his job." Darius bit back a retort, knowing it wouldn't change anything. Instead, he focused on boxing up his things, each item weighing heavier than the last. But Ryan's words lingered, gnawing at him. Was that how people saw him? Or was it easier to label ambition as arrogance when it came from someone like him? His phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him from his thoughts. As he glanced at the screen, another question formed in his mind. Who was really behind this setup? Exiting the building, Darius slowed near the water cooler where two colleagues whispered conspiratorially. One of them, Sarah, leaned closer, her voice barely audible but unmistakable. "Honestly, I'm not surprised they fired him," she said. "Lila's been looking for a reason ever since he pitched that AI branding tool last month. She hated being shown up by someone junior." Her companion nodded. "Yeah, and Malcolm backed her up too. They kept saying he was getting too comfortable. Whatever that means." Darius froze, invisible against the wall, getting too comfortable. Translation: succeeding beyond expectations. His jaw tightened as realization dawned. He wasn't targeted because of plagiarism. He was targeted because he dared to rise. Sarah continued, oblivious to his presence. Still, framing him like this feels low, even for them. Tyrone must have helped. They wouldn't risk doing it without insider info. Tyrone, his best friend at work? Darius staggered backward. The betrayal, slicing deep. Had Tyrone sold him out, and if so, why? His thoughts spiraled as he stepped outside, the cool air doing little to calm his racing mind. There had to be a way to fight back. But how? Back home, Darius slumped onto his couch, scrolling aimlessly through freelance boards to distract himself. Then something caught his eye. A startup competition offering $1 million in seed funding for innovative ideas. His pulse quickened as he read the details. AI-driven branding platforms, exactly what he'd pitched to Visionary weeks ago. A spark ignited within him. What if he didn't need their approval? What if he could build something bigger, better, and unapologetically his? For hours he brainstormed, sketching concepts and drafting plans, fueled by equal parts revenge and redemption. This wasn't just about proving Visionary wrong, it was about creating a legacy. His phone buzzed again, snapping him out of his thoughts. An unknown number flashed on the screen. Curiosity tugged at him. Who could it be? Pressing play on the voicemail, Darius frowned as a distorted voice crackled through the speaker. "You're not alone in this fight. Watch your back." The message ended abruptly, leaving him staring at the phone in stunned silence. Not alone. Did this mean allies or enemies? He replayed the recording twice, searching for clues in the cryptic tone. Whoever it was knew enough to warn him, but not enough to reveal themselves. Darius set the phone down, unease settling over him like a shadow. If Visionary thought firing him was the endgame, they were dead wrong. But who was pulling strings behind the scenes? And more importantly, could he trust anyone moving forward? Darius stood at the podium, his heart racing as he prepared to present his AI-driven branding platform to the panel of judges. Before he could even finish his pitch, Malcolm Drake leaned forward with a smirk that sent chills down Darius's spine. "Interesting concept," Malcolm said, his tone dripping with condescension. "But it seems awfully familiar. Didn't Visionary Media just announce something similar last year?" The room fell silent. Darius clenched his fists under the table, forcing himself to stay calm. "If you're suggesting I stole this idea, you're mistaken. This is my work, developed long before Visionary ever considered AI branding." Malcolm raised an eyebrow, feigning skepticism. "Bold claim. But how do we know you didn't take inspiration from internal discussions at Visionary? After all, you were there until recently." Gasps rippled through the audience. Darius felt the weight of their stares, suspicion creeping into their expressions. He knew what Malcolm was doing, planting seeds of doubt without evidence, using racism disguised as professionalism to undermine him. "You have no proof," Darius shot back, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. Malcolm shrugged, leaning back in his chair. "Maybe not, but perception matters, doesn't it?" As the session ended, Darius walked off stage, anger simmering beneath the surface. If Malcolm thought he could break him with baseless accusations, he was wrong. But the damage had already been done. Doubt lingered in the air like smoke. Days later, Darius scrolled through tech news sites when a headline stopped him cold. Visionary. Media unveils revolutionary AI branding tool. His blood ran cold as he clicked the article, only to find screenshots eerily similar to his own designs. It wasn't just the concept, it was the execution, the features, even the branding language. They'd copied everything. He called Sofia Alvarez immediately, his voice trembling with rage. "Did you see this? They didn't just steal my idea, they replicated it down to the smallest detail." Sofia sighed on the other end of the line. "I saw it. And honestly, it's not surprising. These companies thrive on exploiting talent they can't control. But don't worry, we'll figure out how to expose them." Expose them? The words echoed in Darius's mind as he stared at the screen. How could he fight a multi-million-dollar corporation with endless resources? Then it hit him. He still had his original sketches, notes, and prototypes, proof that his idea predated Visionary's announcement. But would anyone believe him over a powerhouse like Visionary? His phone buzzed again, pulling him from his thoughts. Another email notification flashed across the screen, a cryptic message hinting at insider information. Could this be the break he needed? For now, all he could do was dig deeper, searching for cracks in Visionary's facade. One thing was certain: they wouldn't get away with this, not if he had anything to say about it. Sophia arrived at Darius's apartment unannounced, clutching a folder stuffed with documents. Her expression was grim, but determined. "I've been investigating Visionary for months," she explained, spreading papers across the coffee table. "Their timeline doesn't add up. Look, these internal memos show they started developing their AI tool weeks after your pitch." Darius scanned the documents, his pulse quickening. "This is exactly what I need. But why are you helping me?" Sophia hesitated, then met his gaze. "Because stories like yours deserve to be told. And because if we don't hold companies like Visionary accountable, they'll keep getting away with this kind of exploitation." Her words resonated with Darius, reigniting his resolve. Together, they began piecing together a case against Visionary, combining Sophia's research with Darius's original designs. For the first time since his firing, he felt a glimmer of hope. But as they worked late into the night, Darius couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant car horn made him glance toward the window. Was someone out there, waiting to strike? Just as Darius and Sophia finalized their strategy, Tyrone Hayes appeared at the door, his face pale and guilt-ridden. "We need to talk," Tyrone said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Darius crossed his arms, suspicion written all over his face. "What do you want, Tyrone?" Tyrone hesitated, avoiding eye contact. I gave them the emails. Lila pressured me, said I'd lose my job if I didn't cooperate." Darius felt like the wind had been knocked out of him. Of all people, Tyrone, the one person he trusted at Visionary, had betrayed him. "You framed me?" Darius asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Tyrone nodded, shame etched into his features. "I didn't think it would go this far. I swear, Darius. I thought they'd just fire you and move on. I never imagined they'd destroy your career." Darius turned away, struggling to process the betrayal. It wasn't just Tyrone's actions. It was the fear that drove him, the same systemic oppression that forced marginalized individuals to turn on each other. "Get out," Darius finally said, his voice cold and hollow. As Tyrone left, Darius sank onto the couch, exhaustion washing over him. Betrayed by his best friend, targeted by his former employer, and fighting an uphill battle against a system rigged against him. How much more could he take? Despite the mounting challenges, Darius managed to secure preliminary funding from a group of investors. But their enthusiasm came with conditions. "Your concept is promising," one investor said during a video call, "but let's be honest, you're not the face we envisioned leading this kind of venture." Darius stiffened, bracing himself for what came next. "What does that mean?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "It means," another chimed in, "that having someone more polished, someone who fits the traditional image of leadership, might make securing additional funding easier." Translation: someone white. Someone who looked less threatening to those holding the purse strings. Darius swallowed hard, biting back the retort forming on his lips. He refused to compromise his identity or dilute his vision for anyone. "I built this company," he said, firmly, "and I'll lead it. If that's a problem, I'll find investors who respect authenticity over appearances." The call ended awkwardly, leaving Darius frustrated but resolute. He wouldn't let them strip him of his agency. Not again. Just as Darius began rebuilding momentum, a letter arrived via courier. A lawsuit from Visionary, alleging intellectual property theft. "They're suing me?" Darius exclaimed, slamming the document onto the table. Sophia skimmed the pages, her brow furrowing. "This is dirty. They're using Malcolm's smear campaign to justify this. Without evidence, they're trying to bankrupt you." Darius paced the room, his mind racing. "They think I'll back down, that I'll fold under pressure. But they underestimate me." Public opinion shifted overnight, fueled by Malcolm's inflammatory statements painting Darius as disgruntled and unethical. Social media exploded with criticism, trolls targeting Darius relentlessly. "This isn't just about winning anymore," Sophia said quietly. "It's about surviving." Surviving. The word weighed heavily on Darius as he scrolled through hateful comments online. Friends stopped responding to messages. Collaborators distanced themselves. Even some supporters questioned whether siding with him was worth the backlash. Alone and overwhelmed, Darius wondered if the fight was worth it. Could one man stand against such a powerful machine? One by one, key members of Darius's team began walking away. First, his lead developer cited personal reasons. Then, his marketing strategist admitted she couldn't risk associating with a controversial figure. Even Sophia seemed hesitant, her calls growing less frequent. When Darius confronted her, she sighed, her voice heavy with regret. "I'm sorry, Darius. If I continue supporting you publicly, my career could be over. Too, I can't afford to lose everything." Her words cut deep, leaving Darius questioning who, if anyone, he could truly trust. Late at night, he sat alone in his studio, staring at unfinished designs and half-written emails. Legal fees piled up, creditors called daily, and the lawsuit loomed like a storm cloud. Was this the end? Had Visionary finally succeeded in breaking him? But as despair threatened to consume him, a faint memory surfaced, his father's voice echoing in his mind. "Never let them silence you." Darius straightened, determination flickering back to life. No matter how dire things seemed, he wouldn't give up. Not yet. Dr. Marcus Bellamy leaned back in his chair, pushing a folder across the table toward Darius. His expression was grim but resolute. "This isn't just forgery, it's deepfake manipulation," Marcus explained, tapping a printed email chain. "Only someone with access to Visionary's proprietary software could have created these emails, and judging by the metadata, it came from Lila Pearson's account." Darius stared at the documents, his hands trembling slightly. Irrefutable proof. After months of fighting blind, he finally had the weapon he needed to expose Visionaries. "Corruption, but why go this far?" Darius asked, his voice low and raw with disbelief. "Why target me like this?" Marcus sighed, removing his glasses. "Because you're a threat, not just professionally, but culturally. You represent everything they fear: talent, ambition, and unapologetic authenticity." The words hit hard, crystallizing what Darius had always suspected. This wasn't about plagiarism or intellectual property. It was about silencing him before he could rise too high. As Marcus packed up his materials, he added one final warning. "Be careful, son. People don't give up power easily. If they find out you know this." Darius nodded, already mentally preparing for the next step. But as he left Marcus's office, he couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing, closer than he realized. That night, chaos erupted. Darius returned to his studio to find the door ajar, papers scattered across the floor, and his computer, screen cracked beyond repair. Panic surged through him as he surveyed the wreckage. Every sketch, every prototype, every shred of evidence he'd painstakingly gathered, all gone. His phone buzzed incessantly with missed calls and messages. Sophia's name flashed on the screen. "They attacked my studio," Darius said hoarsely when he answered. "Everything's destroyed." Sophia gasped audibly. "Whoever did this knows you're close to exposing them. They're desperate. Desperation." That word echoed in Darius's mind as he sank onto the floor amidst the ruins of his work. For weeks, He'd fought tirelessly, clawing his way back from betrayal after betrayal, but now, staring at the ashes of his dreams, doubt crept in. Was this the end? I won't let them win, Sophia declared over the phone later that evening. Her voice carried urgency and hope. Darius sighed, still reeling from the attack. What can we do? Everything I built is gone. Not everything, Sophia countered sharply. We still have Marcus's findings, and I've reached out to someone who might help us amplify your story. Before Darius could respond, another voice joined the call, a confident, energetic tone that immediately commanded attention. This is Riley Chen, the newcomer introduced herself. I've been following your case, Darius. Your fight isn't just yours, it's ours. Let's make sure everyone knows the truth. Riley wasted no time outlining her plan, a viral campaign under Naren's Stand with Darius, exposing Visionary's crimes, while rallying support for marginalized voices everywhere. For the first time in days, Darius felt a flicker of hope reignite within him. Maybe he wasn't alone after all. Within hours, the hashtag exploded online. Thousands shared their own stories of workplace discrimination, tagging Visionary and demanding accountability. Clients began severing ties, issuing public statements condemning the company's unethical behavior. Messages poured into Darius's inbox. Messages of solidarity, encouragement, and gratitude. Strangers thanked him for standing tall against injustice, reminding him why this fight mattered. But beneath the wave of support lurked darker currents. Trolls continued their attacks, calling him opportunistic and ungrateful. Yet even those insults seemed weaker now, drowned out by an overwhelming tide of collective outrage. Visionary's empire wavered, cracks forming in its once impenetrable facade, and Darius knew the battle wasn't over, not yet. But for the first time, victory felt within reach. Standing before a live-streamed audience of millions, Darius took a deep breath, holding up Marcus's findings alongside damning text messages between Lila and Tyrone. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. This is the truth Visionary tried to bury. These emails were fabricated using deepfake technology accessible only to senior executives. And these texts prove Lila instructed Tyrone to frame me, to silence me. The room erupted in murmurs as screenshots filled the screen, leaving no room for denial. Lila, visibly shaken, attempted to defend herself during the Q&A session. These allegations are baseless. We are committed to fairness and transparency. But her words fell flat, drowned out by boos and demands for accountability. Then Tyrone appeared on screen, visibly distraught. I didn't want any part of this, he admitted, tears streaming down his face. I was scared. I thought if I cooperated, they'd leave me alone. The confession sent shockwaves through the audience, solidifying Darius's position as a symbol of resilience. Yet even as justice seemed imminent, Darius sensed something, or someone, was still hiding in the shadows. Just as the live stream neared its conclusion, a new figure stepped forward, Malcolm Drake. Enough, he barked, cutting off Lila mid-sentence. Every eye turned to him as he approached the podium, his usual arrogance replaced by guilt-ridden determination. You want the truth, Malcolm spat, glaring at the camera. Fine, I orchestrated this entire scheme. I saw Darius as a threat, a talented black man climbing too fast, too boldly. So I used my influence to take him down. The admission stunned everyone, including Darius. Malcolm's jealousy, his fear of being overshadowed, it all came pouring out in a torrent of self-loathing and regret. I wanted him gone, Malcolm continued, his voice breaking. But I never imagined it would spiral this far. I didn't think anyone would actually destroy him. As Malcolm collapsed into a chair, defeated, Visionary's reputation crumbled around him. The company that once thrived on exploitation now stood exposed, its leaders disgraced and humiliated. For Darius, it was vindication, but also validation. Systemic racism wasn't just a theory. It was alive, thriving, and perpetuated by those too afraid to confront change. And though the fight wasn't fully over, Darius knew one thing for certain: he'd sparked something bigger than himself. Months after the scandal broke, Darius stood at the helm of his newly launched startup, its name, legacy branding, emblazoned across billboards and digital platforms worldwide. Investors who once doubted him now clamored to be part of his success story. "It's not just about technology," Darius said during a press conference, addressing reporters eager to hear his thoughts on Visionary's downfall. "It's about creating spaces where marginalized voices can thrive without fear of exploitation." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. While Visionary struggled to recover from plummeting stock prices and mass client defections, legacy branding became synonymous with innovation and ethical leadership. But triumph didn't come without scars. Late nights spent rebuilding his designs, battling trolls online, and navigating legal battles had left their mark. Yet every challenge only strengthened his resolve. As he walked through his new office, a vibrant hub filled with diverse talent, he felt a sense of vindication, not just for himself, but for everyone who'd ever been told they weren't good enough because of the color of their skin or the audacity to dream big. Still, one question lingered in his mind. What would he do about Tyrone, the man who'd betrayed him yet claimed remorse? Tyrone approached Darius outside a crowded networking event, his face etched with guilt and uncertainty. "Darius, I don't know how to make this right," Tyrone stammered, avoiding eye contact. "What I did was wrong, selfish. I was scared, and I let them use me." Darius studied him silently, weighing his words against the betrayal that still burned deep within him. Forgiveness wasn't something he could offer lightly, not when trust had been shattered so completely. "You're sorry?" Darius finally replied, his tone measured but firm. "That's a start, but apologies don't fix systems. They don't undo damage. If you really want redemption, use your privilege to advocate for others. Speak up when no one else will. Fight for those being silenced." Tyrone nodded slowly, tears welling in his eyes. "I'll try. I promise." Whether Tyrone would follow through remained uncertain. But Darius knew accountability wasn't about absolution. It was about action. And if Tyrone truly meant what he said, maybe there was hope for him yet. Later that evening, as Darius sat alone in his apartment celebrating another milestone, his laptop pinged with an incoming email. The subject line read simply, "Your parents would be proud." His breath caught as he opened it, the message brief but profound. "You've carried the torch they lit. Keep fighting." Confusion gave way to realization as Darius dug out an old box from the back of his closet. Inside lay his late father's phone, the same device that had delivered the cryptic voicemail months earlier. He powered it on, scrolling through archived messages until he found the original recording. It matched the voice from the email perfectly. Wave of emotion washed over him. His father's wisdom, resilience, and unwavering belief in justice had guided him through the darkest moments of his journey. Even in death, his presence lingered, a quiet force propelling Darius forward. For the first time, Darius allowed himself to grieve, not just for the losses he'd endured, but for the legacy he was building. Weeks later, Darius stood before a group of young black designers gathered in a community center auditorium. Their faces brimmed with curiosity and determination, mirroring his own ambitions years ago. "When I started out," Darius began, pacing slowly across the stage, "people tried to tell me I didn't belong, that my ideas were too bold, my voice too loud. They wanted me to shrink myself, to fit into boxes designed to keep me small." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "But here's the truth. Systemic racism is real. It will try to silence you, discredit you, and bury your dreams. But don't let it win, because resilience isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving despite the odds. One young woman raised her hand hesitantly. What if they don't? Listen, what if they never see us? Darius smiled softly, recalling Sophia's advice early in his fight. Then we build our own tables. We create spaces where our voices matter, and when we succeed, we reach back to pull others up with us. The room erupted in applause, a chorus of gratitude and inspiration filling the air. For Darius, this was more than mentorship. It was reparations. A promise to future generations that they wouldn't have to fight alone. As the session ended, several students approached him, eager to share their ideas. Darius listened intently, realizing this was where his true legacy lay, not in accolades, but in empowerment. That night, as Darius returned home, the city lights flickered beyond his window like stars scattered across the horizon. He poured himself a cup of coffee, savoring the quiet after weeks of relentless activity. His phone buzzed occasionally with congratulatory messages, but he set it aside, choosing instead to reflect on the journey. From wrongful termination to global recognition, every step had shaped him into the leader he was today. As he turned off the lights, preparing for bed, the distant sound of applause echoed faintly in his ears. Or perhaps in his heart. It was the sound of collective support, of millions standing alongside those brave enough to challenge injustice. The screen fades to black, leaving only the rhythm of clapping hands reverberating in the darkness. And though the story ends here, its impact lingers. A reminder that resilience, authenticity, and unity can dismantle even the strongest systems of oppression. This story of resilience against systemic injustice reminds us that change begins when we stand together. If Darius's journey inspired you to reflect on the power of authenticity and courage, let's keep the conversation going. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps amplify voices that deserve to be heard. If you're ready to join a community fighting for fairness and representation, hit like and subscribe for more stories that challenge the status quo. Together, we can turn inspiration into action.